In the time before memory, when mountains still wandered and stars were young and unanchored, the world was a vast sea of mist and storm. No land stood still, no wind blew twice in the same direction, and the heavens themselves shivered with lightning that had no master. From this chaos rose the first great forces, not gods yet, but hungers vast enough to shape creation. From the heart of thunder was born Elarion, a being of storm and pulse, whose voice cracked mountains, and whose gaze could shatter the calm sea into endless waves. From the depths of the abyss rose Nerissa, queen of the endless tides, whose laughter could summon whirlpools, and whose tears could drown the horizon. Between them the world found its rhythm, a tempestuous harmony of thunder and tide, fury and calm, creation and destruction. Elarion looked upon the sea and saw beauty, though his nature was chaos. He reached with hands of lightning, carving valleys into the water's surface, and in his passion struck Nerissa's domain, igniting waves with light. But Nerissa, proud and unyielding, rose from the depths in her mantle of dark pearls and said, "Storm-born one, your thunder blinds the heavens but knows nothing of rhythm. You tear the world to awaken it, but you do not see what you break." Her voice carried the calm of eternity and the fury of tides unbound. Elarion laughed, his voice a thunderclap that split clouds for 100 leagues. "If I did not break it, it would never breathe. The sky was born to roar and the sea to rise." Their quarrel became the first storm, lightning striking the deep, waves crashing against wind, and for centuries they fought, neither gaining dominion, neither surrendering, each shaping the world with fury and awe. But creation loves balance, and from their struggle rose Aetheion, child of tempest and tide, whose birth stilled the winds for 7 days and made the sea as glass. He bore his father's eyes of lightning and his mother's calm voice, and when he spoke, his words wove the first song, a sound that bound wind, water, and earth into form. Land rose from the depths where none had stood, mountains formed like sleeping beasts, and rivers carved paths through chaos. The world became still enough for life to awaken, and the first mortals, shaped from sea foam and thunder dust, opened their eyes to a dawn that did not shatter the sky. Elarion, moved by pride and awe, looked upon his son and said, "He shall command the storms when I am gone." But Nerissa, her gaze deep as the abyss, whispered, "No, he shall choose his own dominion, for even gods cannot command the heart of balance." Thus began the rivalry of storm and tide that would span eons, shaping both gods and mortals, kings and wanderers. For Elarion's heart desired dominion. He sought to rule the skies and the seas alike, while Nerissa wished only harmony, to preserve what their war had nearly destroyed. And Aetheion, torn between them, grew restless, for the call of both thunder and tide sang within him, and he feared that to choose one was to betray the other. As centuries passed, mortals built temples to both the storm and the sea, offering thunderstones and pearls to keep peace between the gods. But deep beneath the waves, darker powers stirred, remnants of chaos that predated even Elarion's birth. They called themselves the Unmoored, spirits of the first void who despised balance, whispering to mortals that they could claim the power of gods if they shattered the pact of storm and tide. And as ambition grew among humankind, so too did the discord between Elarion and Nerissa. For every mortal prayer became a spark of rivalry. Elarion's priests called the storms to their cities, believing thunder purified weakness. Nerissa's followers drowned themselves in the tide, seeking rebirth in her depths. The world trembled again as the bond between storm and sea weakened. And Aetheion, torn between his parents' realms, walked among mortals in disguise, listening to their prayers, learning of fear, love, and the fragile courage of those who stood beneath the storm. From them he learned what neither god could see, that balance was not peace, nor domination, but choice. In the final days of the First Age, as the Unmoored rose to corrupt both sea and sky, Aetheion stood upon the cliff of Elarion's heart, where lightning kissed the ocean and raised his voice in defiance of fate. If storm and tide must destroy the world to prove their dominion, then let the son of both defy them. Let me bear the burden of their fury and bind heaven and sea in my own soul. And the world trembled, for the storm answered him. Elarion's voice thundered from the heavens. You would stand against your father? And Nerissa's whisper echoed from the deep. You would bind what was meant to flow free? Aetheon stood unflinching, his hair ablaze with lightning, his feet in the surf, and said, Then I shall be neither storm nor tide, but bridge, and my name shall be the calm between them. And so began the first prophecy of balance, written in thunder and salt, destined to echo through the ages. The age of mortals dawned beneath skies that never slept, for though Aethion's song had bound the world into form, his parents' rivalry still echoed in every wind and tide. Kingdoms rose along the edges of the sea, their banners embroidered with lightning bolts and spirals of wave, each claiming the favor of one god or the other. To the north lay Vareth, the kingdom of storms, where thunder was worshipped as divine truth, and kings were crowned beneath bolts that split the sky. To the south lay Myrelon, the kingdom of tides, where queens ruled by moonlight, and the rhythm of the sea dictated every harvest, birth, and death. Between them stretched the Alaric expanse, a land forever caught between drought and flood, its people hardened by both wind and salt. For a time, there was peace, an uneasy balance of tribute and fear, until the first Tempest King, Varanor, was born. A man of thunder's fury and mortal will, Varanor was said to be chosen by Elarion himself, his eyes flashing with the light of storms, his voice carrying the resonance of command. He united the northern clans under the banner of the Storm Sigil, and declared that thunder was the truest voice of gods, that lightning struck not in wrath, but in judgment. His armies marched beneath banners of black and silver, their drums mimicking the heartbeat of thunder. Cities that resisted were consumed by flame from the heavens, and mortals began to believe that Elarion's will could only be expressed through conquest. Across the sea, Queen Serindra of Myrelon stood upon the cliffs of moonlit pearl and called upon Nerissa for counsel. Storm claims dominion, she said to the waves. Shall the sea remain silent? From the depths came Nerissa's voice, soft yet boundless. The sea does not roar in fear, but in return. The storm has forgotten the song of balance and remind it. Serindra wept, for she understood the price of divine rivalry. To resist thunder, she must summon the tide's wrath. And so she called forth the tidal guard, warriors born in the ebb of the moon, wielding blades of coral and armor of living shell. Their ships, shaped like crescent moons, rode waves conjured by Nerissa herself, their sails glowing with bioluminescent runes. Thus began the War of the Tempest Kings, a conflict destined to shatter the balance of the world. Aetheon, walking among mortals in the guise of a wanderer, saw the storm and tide tearing the world anew, and his heart broke. He saw temples burning in lightning and harbors drowned in vengeful seas. Mortals prayed for mercy from gods who no longer listened, and in their despair, they began to turn to forbidden powers, whispers from the abyss where the unmoored still lingered. These ancient remnants of chaos saw opportunity in divine pride, and through mortal ambition, they found form once more. They offered the promise of power unbound by storm or tide, a magic drawn from the void before creation. And slowly, across battlefields and temples, the darkness returned. Varanor's priests, seeking greater dominion, began summoning black storms that burned without thunder, calling them Elarion's fury. But it was not the gods' power they wielded, it was the void's. In their zeal, they tore holes in the fabric of the sky, and through them, the unmoored poured like ink into the wind. The first black rain fell upon Vareth, consuming soldiers and cities alike, leaving behind crystal shadows that whispered eternally. To the south, Serindra's seers saw the omens in the waves, the sea turning to glass, the moon bleeding into the tide. and knew that victory bought through wrath would destroy both kingdoms. Desperate to end the war, Serindra summoned the Oracle of Depths, an ancient spirit who dwelled where no light reached. "How can the storm and sea find peace?" she asked. The oracle answered with a riddle. "Only the bridge can calm the thunder, only the calm can tame the sea. Seek the son of both, for his voice holds the song of creation." And so, the Queen of Miralon sent envoys into every land, seeking Aethon, the lost child of gods, who alone could end the tempest. In the north, Varanor laughed at these tales. "A myth cannot save mortals from thunder," he declared. "We are the heirs of the storm now, not the servants of gods, but their equal." His arrogance drew Elarion's attention, for even gods grow restless when mortals speak their names too boldly. From the heart of thunder, Elarion descended, cloaked in lightning, his eyes burning like stars. He stood before Varanor, both proud and furious. "You summon storms in my name, but poison them with void," said the god of thunder. "You speak of dominion, yet forget devotion." Varanor, trembling yet defiant, lifted his sword. "I honor you, Lord of Storms, by becoming what you cannot. I shall command the world in your image." The ground split. Lightning struck, not as blessing but as judgment, and when the flash faded, Varanor was gone, consumed by his own arrogance. In his place, a storm unlike any before raged across the land, devouring both Vareth and Miralon in equal measure. The sea rose to meet it, the sky descended in fury, and for 7 days and nights, the world knew nothing but wind and water, thunder and wave. When the storm finally broke, both kingdoms lay in ruin. The proud towers of Vareth had crumbled into glass. The shining harbors of Miralon lay buried beneath coral and silt. From the wreckage rose only silence, broken by a single voice, a man standing upon the drowned shore, lightning in his hair, salt on his skin. Aethon had returned. He raised his hands to the broken horizon and whispered, "Father, Mother, your war has ended. You have left nothing but silence. So now I speak, and my words shall bind even the storm." His voice became thunder. His tears became tide, and for the first time, the gods themselves fell silent. Thus ended the War of the Tempest Kings, and began the Age of the Return. The sea was quiet for the first time in 1,000 years. No lightning scarred the sky, no waves rose in rage, only the hush of aftermath lingered, soft as morning. From the ruins of storm and tide, Aethon walked, barefoot upon the drowned earth, where kingdoms once stood. His hair shimmered faintly with the ghost of lightning, his eyes deep as the ocean floor. Each step he took reawakened the world. Grasses grew where his feet touched mud, and the broken shells of cities sighed like lungs remembering how to breathe. The mortals who had survived the Tempest War crept from caves and shattered temples, their hearts heavy with fear and awe. For they saw in him something both divine and human, a being who carried the grief of gods and the courage of men. When they asked his name, he said softly, "I am neither storm nor sea. I am the calm that remains." And they called him Aethon the Returner, for through him, the world began to rise again. He gathered those who lived among the ruins, the orphans of Vareth and Miralon, wanderers from the drowned isles, the scarred and the lost, and led them to the plateau of Aruna, a vast stretch of land untouched by the storm's wrath. There, beneath a sky still scarred by lightning's memory, he spoke to them of balance and memory. "You built temples to thunder and drowned yourselves in tide," he said. "You prayed for power and feared peace. But neither storm nor sea will save you, only your will to rise again." Among his followers was Lysera, once a priestess of Nerissa, her hair the color of moonlight and her eyes dark as the deep. She had lost her family to the black waves of vengeance and had sworn never to serve gods again. Yet in Aetheon she saw not a god but a truth that transcended divinity. "You speak of peace as if it can live in the hearts of men," she said. "But mortals are born from conflict. Even love is war." Aetheon smiled, not in defiance but in sorrow. "Then let peace be the war worth fighting." It was Lysara who helped Aetheon build the sanctum of the bridge, a great stone temple not to worship gods but to remember them, to remind mortals that the divine was both gift and warning. There were no idols, no thrones, no sacrifices. Only an open space beneath the sky where wind and water met in silence. Aetheon decreed that no prayer should be offered there for gain, only for gratitude. And for a time the world listened. But the past does not die easily. Far beyond the sea, in the depths where sunlight never reached, Nerissa watched. Her son's defiance wounded her, for in him she saw the mirror of her own pride. "He binds what was meant to flow free," she whispered to the deep, her tears forming new currents. Yet beneath her sorrow was love, the love of a mother who could not release her creation. And above, in the hollowed storms of the sky, Elarion raged. "He silences thunder," the god cried, his lightning scattering across the heavens. "He would cage the storm to cradle mortals. He forgets his birthright." The heavens trembled as the gods stirred once more, and the fragile calm of the world began to crack. Aetheon felt it first, the pull of storm and tide warring again within his soul. He wandered into the wilderness, leaving his followers behind, seeking counsel in silence. Days turned to weeks, weeks to years. In the solitude of mountains and rivers, he spoke to the world as one might to a wounded child. "Storm, I am your echo," he said to the sky. "Sea, I am your reflection," he said to the waves. "But I am also what you cannot be, both and neither." The world answered in omens. The lightning struck but did not burn. The tide rose but did not drown. And from the quiet between them came a whisper not of gods, but of something older. The voice beneath the veil, the last remnant of creation itself. "Aetheon," it murmured, "you are balance, but balance is not stillness. The world moves or it dies. Will you move with it?" He understood then. To protect mortals from the wrath of gods was not to silence storm and tide, but to teach humankind how to wield them wisely. And so, he returned to his people, to Lysara and the children of the sanctum, and began teaching them the way of the bridge. How to call thunder without destruction, how to command waves without drowning, how to hold power without hunger. These teachings became the first harmony between man and divine, a path between chaos and peace. Generations passed. And from these teachings rose the Order of the Veil, keepers of Aetheon's wisdom, guardians of the balance. They built cities that breathed with nature, towers that sang with the wind, harbors that bent with the rhythm of the tide. The world flourished once more, a golden age of calm born from ruin, but even golden ages have shadows. In the far reaches of the north, where the storms still whispered Elarion's name, a child was born beneath a sky split by silver fire. His mother died as he took his first breath, and the midwives said lightning marked him as chosen. They named him Kael, which in the old tongue meant echo of thunder. As he grew, the air itself trembled when he grew angry, and the sea retreated when he wept. The elders whispered that he carried the spirit of Elarion reborn, the storm's vengeance made flesh, and so destiny turned once more. When Aetheon heard of Kael, he looked to the horizon and felt the pull of his father's essence stirring within the boy. "The storm returns," he said, his voice heavy with both hope and dread. Lysara, now older and wise, placed her hand upon his arm. "Then teach him before the sky claims him." Thus began the age of the return, when gods and mortals would meet once more, not in worship or war, but in reckoning. For the storm had found a new heir, and the bridge would be tested again. The boy who would shake the heavens was born in silence, a silence too deep for the living world. The winds that had never rested since creation stilled at his first cry. The sea withdrew, as though holding its breath, Lightning crowned the horizon for 3 days and 3 nights, tracing his name across the clouds. Kael, the echo of thunder. He grew beneath the watch of the Order of the Veil, among the mountains of Aruna, where Aetheion had once built the first sanctuary of balance. The monks spoke of harmony and restraint, of storm and tide held in equal heart. But Kael, even as a child, felt the weight of lightning within his blood. He could hear thunder in his dreams, voices calling him from the clouds. And though Aetheion himself came to teach him calm, Kael's soul burned like the heart of a tempest waiting to be born. When he reached his 17th year, he climbed the cliffs of the Skyfire Peaks, where lightning never ceased. Aetheion found him there, standing unflinching as bolts shattered the stone around him. "Why do you defy the calm, child?" the Godbridge asked. "The world has found peace." Kael's eyes, bright with stormlight, met his. "Peace is only sleep for those who fear their power. You call yourself balance, but I see only restraint. The world bows beneath calm because it has forgotten how to roar." Aethion's heart trembled. He heard in Kael's words not just arrogance, but truth. The same truth that had once burned within Elarion himself. "Power untempered becomes ruin," he warned. "Storm without song is only chaos." Kael turned toward the horizon where the thunderclouds churned. "Then teach me to sing in lightning, not silence." From that day, Aetheion took Kael as his disciple. Together they walked the lands that had once been drowned and burned, through valleys reborn from ruin and forests grown from ash. Aetheion showed him the harmony between destruction and creation, how fire cleared the way for growth, how the sea's retreat fed the soil, how even lightning's strike birthed new life from char. And for a time, Kael listened, but deep within him, something ancient stirred, the fragment of Elarion's essence, bound in the thunder that birthed him. It whispered to him in storms, in dreams, in the space between heartbeats. "You are the storm reborn. The sky is your inheritance. The calm is your chain." One night, as Kael slept upon the shores of the silent sea, the storm came for him, a vision of flame and cloud, a colossal figure with eyes like burning suns. Elarion himself, the storm god eternal, stood before him, not in wrath, but in longing. "My son's son," the god thundered, "why do you kneel to the calm? I am the pulse of existence. The storm is not wrath, it is life unbound." Kael fell to his knees, trembling. "Then why did the world fall in your age?" Elarion's laughter shook the heavens. "Because they feared the fire in their veins. Because mortals prayed for peace instead of passion. You are not born to serve balance. You are born to reign where gods faltered." When Kael awoke, the sea was boiling and the clouds burned crimson. His power had grown, uncontrolled, radiant, divine. He hid his awakening from Aetheion, fearing his teacher would see the god within him. But the calm feels every tremor in the storm. Aetheion knew. "Your dreams are restless," he said one morning as they stood by the ruins of Vareth, where glass towers still glimmered beneath the sand. "I see my father's fire in your gaze. Tell me what you have seen." Kael turned away. "Only truth, that you have built a cage and called it peace. That the world kneels to balance because it has forgotten how to rise." Aethion's voice was heavy with sorrow. "I built peace because gods tore the world apart. I built calm so mortals could dream without fear." "And in doing so," Kael said, thunder crackling faintly in his words, "you made them small." Lightning struck between them, not in anger, but in fate. The world felt the divide form again, storm against calm, power against restraint, inheritance against choice. Lysera, now a matron of the Order, watched with dread as Kael's aura grew beyond mortal sight. She saw the clouds bend toward him, the sea shift beneath his will. "He carries your father's soul," she told Aetheion. "You cannot chain what was born to command." Aethion's reply was quiet, almost broken. "Then I must teach him to rule without ruin, or end him before the storm awakens again." But Kael had already left the sanctuary. Drawn by voices of wind and shadow, he journeyed north, toward the Pillar of Storms, where the first lightning of the world had once been born. There, amid the tempest that had never ceased since Elarion's fall, he sought to claim his divine heritage. For 7 days, he climbed through thunder and flame, his body torn by wind and stone. On the 7th night, he reached the summit, a spire of black crystal, pulsing with the echo of the god who had made it. And there Kael struck the sky with his bare hands and cried, "If I am your heir, then grant me your storm." The heavens opened. Lightning fell not in bolts, but in rivers, blinding, endless. When it ceased, Kael stood alone upon the pillar, his body wreathed in blue fire, his veins glowing like molten light. His voice, when he spoke, rolled across the horizon like thunder. "I am Kael, son of storm and man. The sky is mine to command." The winds obeyed. The sea bowed. Even the stars trembled. Far away, Aetheon felt it, the rebirth of storm. His calm faltered for the first time since creation, and tears carved paths down his face. "It begins again," he whispered. "The storm rises, and the bridge must break to hold it." Thus began the Age of Reclamation, when gods and mortals would once again stand at the edge of chaos, and the heir of thunder would decide whether to save the world or end it anew. The clouds no longer drifted, they watched. The wind no longer sang, it obeyed. For the storm had returned not as chaos, but as a will made flesh. Across mountains and valleys, through ruins of forgotten kingdoms, the name Kael echoed like prophecy. To the frightened, he was ruin reborn. To the desperate, he was salvation. To the faithful of Elarion, he was the god made whole again. The Order of the Veil sent envoys to reason with him. None returned. The lands of the north trembled under endless thunder, and rivers once calm now surged with divine current. Lightning shaped the mountains. Storms carved the plains. Kael's will remade the world, and mortals, awed and terrified, began to build shrines in his name. They called him Stormborn Sovereign, the Thunder Reclaimed, son of the Skyfire. But to Aetheon, he was still the boy he had taught, the boy who dreamed of freedom and spoke of truth. And so, the Bridge of Balance left the safety of Aruna and walked once more into the tempest. He found Kael upon the summit of the winds, where the sky touched earth and the clouds bowed to his command. Lightning crowned him, but no longer wild. It flowed from him like thought. His armor shimmered with the breath of storms. His eyes glowed with divine purpose. "You have become what my father once was," Aetheon said, his voice both proud and mournful. Kael turned, and thunder answered him. "And you have become what my father feared, a god who kneels to stillness. You call yourself balance, but I see only surrender. The world does not need calm. It needs rebirth." Aetheon stepped closer. "You seek to rebuild, yet your storm devours all that grows. What kind of world will you make when nothing remains standing?" Kael's gaze hardened. "A world strong enough to endure the storm, one that no god or man can shatter again. I will forge it from lightning and blood if I must." "The same words my father spoke before he drowned the world," Aetheon said quietly. "Then let me finish what he began." The wind howled between them. The storm grew still, as if awaiting command. For the first time since creation, the son of balance and the heir of thunder stood against one another, calm and fury, bridge and storm. Kael raised his hand, and the sky answered. Bolts of lightning shaped themselves into wings behind him, radiant and blinding. "Stand aside, old god," he thundered. "I will not destroy you, but I will not bow." Aetheon's voice broke the silence, soft as rainfall. "If I stand aside, the world dies. If I strike you, the world breaks. What choice does a bridge have when both shores fall apart?" And then came the first blow. The storm descended. Lightning met serenity, fire met stillness. The sky split open as Kael's fury struck Aetheon's calm, a war not of power, but of purpose. Mountains cracked, seas rose. The air burned with light. Yet for every bolt Kael unleashed, Aetheon answered not with violence, but with redirection, turning the lightning aside, guiding its energy harmlessly into the air. "Why won't you fight me?" Kael shouted, his voice raw. "Because you are still my son," Aethon said, his tone breaking like thunder fading into rain. "And I will not destroy what I once loved." The words struck deeper than any weapon. Kael faltered, just for an instant, and in that moment Aethon reached out his hand, touching the storm's heart. Lightning and calm intertwined, and the world trembled as their powers merged. In the blinding light that followed, the heavens fell silent. The clash of gods became a single note of creation, harmony so perfect it bordered on pain. When the light faded, the mountain was gone. In its place stretched a vast plain of glass, smooth and shining, reflecting the sky above. Aethon knelt in the center, his body dimmed, his power fading like the last echo of thunder. Kael stood over him, his eyes wide, his breath trembling. "You gave me peace," Kael whispered. "Why?" Aethon smiled faintly, his voice no louder than wind. "Because storm and calm were never enemies, Kael. They were always one. You cannot destroy what you are." Then, as the dawn broke, the bridge of balance crumbled, his light scattering into the air, merging with the wind, the rain, the heartbeat of the world. Aethon was gone, but his essence remained in everything that breathed. Kael fell to his knees, the storm dying around him. He felt the emptiness left behind, not victory but loss. His father's voice echoed faintly through the thunder, not in anger, but in forgiveness. The world waited. For a time, Kael vanished. The storm receded. Mortals whispered that the gods had destroyed each other and that the age of divinity had ended. But deep within the calm that followed, lightning still flickered, soft, restrained, watching, and on quiet nights, when thunder murmured in the distance, the wind still carried Aethon's final words. "Balance is not peace. It is the courage to stand between destruction and creation and love them both." The sky had gone still. For the first time since the birth of the world, the heavens neither thundered nor wept. The clouds hung like pale ghosts above a world unsure whether it had survived a war, or simply paused between heartbeats of eternity. Mountains, once shaped by lightning, now lay quiet as sleeping giants. Seas that had devoured empires now whispered against the shore, gentle as breath. And through this hush walked humankind, frightened, free, and newly orphaned. The gods were gone. Elarion's fire had burned out in his air. Nerissa's voice no longer rippled through the tide. And Aethon, the bridge between all things, had dissolved into the very air, leaving behind no temple, no throne, no name. Only silence. In that silence, the world began to remember how to heal. From the ashes of shattered sanctuaries rose small fires of mortal will. In the east, the survivors of Vareth built villages upon the glass plain where Aethon had fallen. They called it the Vale of Dawn, believing the light that reflected there held the last breath of their lost god. In the south, among the coral ruins of Miralon, the sea people rebuilt their harbors with bare hands, refusing to pray for calm or fortune. "The tide needs no queen," they said. "We are our own rhythm now, and yet, even in freedom, humans are haunted by memory." When storms passed harmlessly over the land, the children looked to the sky and asked, "Who watches us now?" And no one answered. For a time, Kael wandered the earth in secret. No longer storm, no longer god, only man. He hid his divinity beneath a tattered cloak, his lightning buried in a heart too heavy to beat without sorrow. His footsteps carried the echo of thunder still, though he willed it not to. He traveled among mortals, silent, unseen, bearing witness to what they made of the world he had nearly undone. He saw beauty where once there had been ashes, green shoots piercing the glass plain, laughter returning to places where prayers once drowned. And yet he also saw the shadow that never leaves mankind, fear, hunger, ambition. Men who sought to crown themselves in the absence of gods. Women who whispered to the old seas, asking for forgotten power. children born beneath strange storms, lightning flickering behind their eyes. Kael knew then that the divine had not vanished. It had passed into the blood of the living. One night, as he camped beside the ruins of the old sanctum, Lysera appeared to him, not in flesh, but as a vision woven from starlight and memory. Her face was serene, her voice carrying the gentleness of tides long past. "You linger, Stormborn," she said. "Why do you walk among mortals if not to lead them?" Kael bowed his head. "I led once. It ended in ruin." "You cannot run from what you are," she said, smiling sadly. "Even Aetheon could not. The storm is not your curse, Kael. It is your heart. But now you must learn what he never could, how to let it live in others." He looked up at her, eyes bright with sorrow. "They will twist it. They will use it for war again. They might," she said. "But they might also use it to grow." When she vanished, only rain remained, the first true rain in an age. Not thunder, not flood, just rain, the sky's quiet tears for all it had lost. So Kael began his final work. He walked from village to village, unseen by most, speaking to those who still felt the world's rhythm, to farmers who knew the language of clouds, to sailors who listened to the sea's hum, to smiths who forged in lightning's image. To each he left a fragment of his power, not as worship, but as gift. "You are not children of gods," he told them. "You are the heirs of balance. Storm and sea live in you now. The power to destroy and the courage to create. Use both or lose both." In time, these fragments spread like seeds across continents. Some became healers who could calm tempests with song. Others became warriors whose blades hummed with thunder. And some became poets who spoke words that moved wind and wave alike. They called their gift the breath of Aetheon, for it was said to echo the calm that had once held the storm still. Centuries passed. The world changed, yet the silence endured, not as emptiness, but as space for choice. On the 1000th year after the breaking of the bridge, the people gathered upon the glass plain, now covered in grass and flower. They built no altar, spoke no prayer. Instead, they stood hand in hand and lifted their voices in song, a song of remembrance, of gratitude, of defiance. For the first time in all creation, mortals sang not to the heavens, but with them. And far above, in the quiet heart of the sky, something stirred. Not God, not storm, not sea. Only balance. A single bolt of lightning crossed the horizon, silent, graceful, like a smile upon the dawn. The storm was not gone. It was simply home. The world had learned silence, but not stillness. Centuries after the storm had faded and the gods' names turned to myth, mankind began to dream again. Strange dreams of light, wind, and endless sea. They called them echo visions, believing them to be messages from the first dawn. In truth, it was the breath of Aetheon awakening once more. The descendants of those Kael had touched now numbered many, scattered across kingdoms, living ordinary lives, unaware of the power that lay sleeping in their blood. But destiny, as ever, is not silent forever. In the kingdom of Relor, under a sun that burned too fiercely, a girl named Sarah was born amidst a thunderstorm that should never have existed. Lightning split the sky, though the season was dry. The midwives whispered that the sky had spoken her name before her mother did. As she grew, so too did strange things around her. Fires that burned without consuming, winds that sang when she laughed, and sometimes when she cried. The clouds themselves wept. Her father, a historian of the old texts, hid her from the priests, for the Church of the Still Sky forbade all mention of storm or God. "The silence keeps us safe," they said. "The storm brings only ruin." But Sarah did not believe silence was peace. One night, while reading forbidden passages of the Codex of Balance, she found a name written in faded silver ink, Kael, the storm-born sovereign, and beneath it, a phrase she could not ignore. When silence grows heavy, the sky will choose its voice again. That night, She dreamt of lightning. Not wild, not vengeful, but waiting. In the north, across the Iron Plains, a young blacksmith named Darren hammered steel that sang. His forge never required bellows, for wind bent to his rhythm. When he struck, sparks lingered in the air like fireflies refusing to die. He thought it was skill, not gift, until the day an old traveler entered his workshop and watched in silence. When Darren noticed, he spoke gruffly. "If you've come for weapons, I sell none to wanderers." The old man smiled faintly. "And if I've come for a truth you haven't forged yet?" Darren frowned. "Truth doesn't need forging. It either is or it isn't." "Spoken like one who has never seen the gods argue," said the man. He reached into his cloak and placed upon the table a small, broken charm, a fragment of glass, glowing faintly with inner light. "Do you know what this is?" Darren shook his head. "This," the man said softly, "is a piece of the Bridge of Balance, and it has waited long enough for hands that can rebuild what was broken." When Darren looked up again, the man was gone, and the forge burned with lightning. Meanwhile, in the shattered ruins of Miralon, beneath the sea that once worshipped Nerissa, a scholar diver named Elian discovered a whisper that was not current nor creature. In the deep, he heard voices, soft, melodic, calling his name. "Who speaks?" he asked through his breathstone, his words scattering in bubbles. "You breathe our mother's song," the voice replied, "but you do not remember her name." He saw then, faintly in the dark, a shape made of shifting water, neither spirit nor mortal, its eyes glowing like the moon through waves. It reached out to him, placing its hand upon his chest. "Wake," it said. "The tide remembers." When Elian surfaced, he carried water in his lungs, not drowning, but singing. Across continents, the breath stirred. Fire, wind, and water began to dance again, not in destruction, but in yearning. Nature remembered its makers, and mortals began to feel divinity stir within their veins. But the world was not ready. The priests of the still sky declared these awakenings heresy. They spoke of a coming second storm, claiming the old sins would return to drown humanity again. Armies rose to capture or kill those who bore the breath. Shrines to silence were built in every city. And yet, the more they tried to still the wind, the louder it sang. In secret, Sarah fled south, guided by dreams of a mountain that called her name. There she met others like herself, Darren, Elian, and dozens of hidden souls drawn by the same unseen force. Together, they climbed through burning sand and sleeping thunder until they reached the Peak of Mirrors, where legend said the Bridge of Ethion had once touched the sky. There, lightning struck not from heaven, but from the ground. A single, silent bolt that shattered into 1,000 luminous motes, swirling around them like living stars. In their midst stood a figure cloaked in calm light. "You've come," he said, voice neither man's nor God's, but something between. It took longer than I hoped. Sarah stepped forward, heart trembling. "Who are you?" The figure smiled. "Once I was called the Balance. Now I am only memory, but I am glad you remember me." Darren bowed, his hammer glowing. "Ethion," he whispered. The spirit nodded. "My bridge was broken, but the current flows still, through you. The storm and the calm must meet again, or this silence will turn to stone." Sarah's eyes burned like suns. "Then teach us!" But Ethion's gaze turned distant. "You must teach yourselves. The gods once shaped the world to their image, and it broke. Let mortals now shape it in theirs, not as masters, but as keepers." He began to fade, his voice echoing like thunder far away. "Remember this, balance is not the end of chaos. It is the song they sing together." When the light vanished, only silence remained, and a spark of lightning hovered in the air between them. Sarah reached out. It did not burn her, it bowed. From that spark was born the Order of Embers, the first mortal guardians of balance, not gods, not kings, but those who carried both creation and destruction in their souls. They would walk unseen, whispering to storms, calming seas, teaching the world to remember what the sky had once sung, and thus began a new age, not of gods above or mortals below, but of those who breathe both heaven and earth. The Age of Ember had dawned. The Age of Ember had lasted 200 years, long enough for legend to fade into law and law into chains. What began as a covenant of balance, the breath-bearers guarding harmony between creation and destruction, had fractured under the weight of mortal fear. In the vast city of Vaelmir, where silver towers rose above rivers of glass, men no longer whispered prayers to gods but to themselves. The priests of the still sky, once peacekeepers, had become conquerors of quiet. They declared that all breath, all divine spark, must be surrendered to the sanctum for the preservation of order. Those who refused were hunted, marked as storm spawn. But balance, once silenced, always seeks to speak again. In the deep deserts of Relor, the embers still glowed. Sarah, the first of the new Stormborn, had vanished long ago, yet her teachings endured through the Order of Embers, now scattered across hidden sanctuaries. They lived as healers, wanderers, and poets, guardians of forgotten winds. But even their quiet faith began to fracture when the Still Sky's armies came. Wielding machines powered by the stolen breath of captured children, and in the heart of Vaelmir, deep beneath the sanctum's white walls, something ancient stirred. It was not God, not yet, but it remembered divinity. In the lower wards of the city, a boy named Kaelren was born beneath a crimson sun. His name, given by a dying mother, carried an echo, faint but undeniable. He never knew his father, nor the truth of his blood. But when he reached his 13th year, lightning struck the temple's tower without storm, and every mirror in the sanctum cracked. The high priest said it was an omen. The old rebels whispered it was the storm returning. Kaelren felt it inside him, a hum beneath his heartbeat, a pulse that answered thunder. He tried to hide it. But the sky had already seen him. Far across the eastern seas, Elian the Deep Listener, last survivor of the first breath-bearers, felt the tide shift. The ocean's calm grew restless. Whales began to sing in broken hymns that spoke of awakening flame. Elian gathered his few disciples and spoke the old words. When silence births a storm, the world remembers its voice. He knew what it meant. The line of Elarion, the Sunfire, had returned. Meanwhile, within the fortress of Vaelmir, Archpriest Maltharion stood before the stilling pools, where reflections of captured storms flickered beneath glass. His voice was calm, his eyes cold. The gods once burned the world to ash, he said to his council. Now their spark hides in human flesh. We will cut it out, or burn it clean. His right hand, a machine of golden metal, glowed faintly with contained lightning. Order is peace. Silence is life. The breath is a disease, and so began the wars of stillness. The armies of Vaelmir marched, their banners pure white, their weapons thrumming with imprisoned thunder. Across the desert, the embers rose to meet them, carrying fire not as weapon, but as will. At their head walked Darren the Forgeborn, gray now with age, his hammer no longer a tool but a promise. We do not seek gods, he told his followers. We seek the courage to be human again. The first battle raged in the Plains of Mirrors, the very place where Etheon had fallen 1,000 years before. The Still Sky's soldiers unleashed lightning captured from the breath itself, turning divine fire into mechanical fury. Yet when Darren struck his hammer upon the ground, the desert glass sang, and the sky, once silent, began to remember. Thunder rolled, not from clouds, but from memory. The breath-bearers raised their hands. Flames bloomed, waves surged from sand, wind carved light into shape. But amidst the chaos, a single cry broke the rhythm. Kaelren had entered the field. Lightning coiled around him, not as weapon but as armor. His eyes shone gold, not blue, the mark of the Sunfire reborn. The armies halted, awed and afraid. Even the thunder paused, listening. Then, in a voice that was both child and storm, Kaelren spoke. "Why do you fight for silence when the world was born in song?" The sky answered with blinding flame, every weapon shattered. Every soldier fell to their knees as sunlight poured across the battlefield, searing but gentle, like truth. The storm did not destroy. It illuminated. When the light faded, Kaelren stood alone among ashes and glass. He wept. Word of the boy spread like wind through forgotten valleys. Some called him savior. Others called him curse. The priests of Vaelmir declared him heretic, a living echo of Elarion, the god who had once burned the heavens themselves. But among the scattered embers, whispers grew. The balance has returned, not in gods, but in their children. Sarah's name was remembered. Darren's hammer became a relic. Elion's tides began to rise. And deep beneath the sanctum, Maltherion felt something ancient stirring, something older than even Aethion's bridge. He stared into the stilling pools, where lightning slept behind glass. And the reflection that looked back at him was not his own. "Did you think you could silence fire?" a voice whispered. "I am the sun, and I have always been watching." The glass cracked, and from it the sunfire awakened. The sunfire had returned, not as god nor wrath, but as memory-given flesh. Kaelren's awakening tore through every kingdom like dawn through endless night. Across seas and mountains, crops that had long withered bloomed in a single hour. Old ruins glowed, veins of molten gold tracing their forgotten names. But with the light came fear, for what shines brightest also burns deepest. The priests of the still sky declared the boy an abomination. To them, divinity was a curse resurrected, the same power that once drowned worlds and shattered heavens. Their armies rebuilt, driven by faith twisted into obsession. They called themselves the Wardens of the Void, swearing to restore silence forever. Yet, beyond the reach of their sermons, in the broken plains of Relor, the Order of Embers rallied. They gathered beneath banners stitched from torn prayer cloths, their sigil a hand holding flame and water, the mark of Aethion's balance. Darren's descendants forged new weapons of tempered light. Elion's sea-born kin sang the tides into storms. And high among them, guiding through chaos, stood Sarah's line, her teachings reborn in the hearts of 1,000 dreamers who remembered her courage. But it was Kaelren, standing alone upon the mirrored plain, who carried the world's hope and terror, both. He no longer slept. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw the past, the wars of gods, the drowning of Miralon, the death of Aethyon. He felt their guilt and glory, their love and ruin. And within that endless dream, the voice of the sun whispered to him, "You are me, but you are not bound as I was. Will you repeat my fire or rewrite it?" Kaelren would wake and sweat, the ground beneath him scorched in the shape of wings. He walked among mortals quietly, healing where he could, hiding his power where he must. But wherever he went, miracles followed. Rivers cleared of poison, winds carried songs, and children born near him bore the faint mark of light behind their eyes. The people called him Dawnfire. Some prayed to him, some hunted him, and soon, prayers became armies. The rebellion began at the siege of Vaelmir. For 50 days, the embers stood outside the gleaming city, demanding the release of captured breath-bearers. Inside, the wardens prepared their final weapon, a creation of Maltherion himself, the vessel of stillness, a prism forged to imprison light itself. Within it, the sunfire could be sealed, and the world would sleep forever in quiet shadow. Maltherion addressed his council beneath the cracked dome of the sanctum. Balance failed. The gods failed. Even silence fails, he said. But emptiness endures. We shall make the world empty, of gods, of will, of breath, and it shall finally be perfect. Lightning trembled beneath his golden hand. His flesh had long decayed. Only the machine of his faith kept him alive. On the 51st day, Kaelren entered the city alone. He wore no armor, carried no blade. The guards fell before him not in battle, but in awe. He walked through streets of stone and silence until he reached the sanctum. There, beneath a ceiling painted with forgotten suns, he found Maltherion waiting, surrounded by the broken idols of 1,000 years. "So," Maltherion said, his voice like grinding gears, "the child comes to finish the god's work." "I came to end it," Kaelren said softly. "All of it. Gods, silence, war." The archpriest raised his metal arm. "Then burn, son of fire." The vessel flared to life, drawing Kaelren's light from his veins. His body convulsed. His eyes dimmed. The chamber filled with searing brilliance as the prism fed on his essence. But even as his strength waned, Kaelren saw it. The same calm light that had once lived in Aethion's gaze. And he remembered. "Balance is not the end of fire," he whispered. "It is learning when to burn and when to warm." He reached into the storm within him, not rage, but compassion. The sunfire flared, and for the first time in all creation, light bent to mercy. The vessel cracked. Maltherion screamed as the energy consumed him. His golden hand melted. His body turned to ash. The prism shattered into 1,000 mirrors, and from each shard burst a new dawn. The shock wave tore through the city, not destroying, but awakening every soul, every stone. Every drop of rain shimmered with the breath once more. The world exhaled. When the radiance faded, Kaelren knelt amid the ruins. The embers entered the city to find him weeping beside the broken prism. Around him, the wardens had laid down their arms. Daren's descendants knelt. Ilion's kin sang the tides into calm. And from the sky above, for the first time since Aethion's fall, thunder rolled, soft, steady, like a heartbeat. Sarah's name was whispered in every language. Kaelren looked up through the light, and there, standing between storm and sky, he saw them. Aethion, Lysera, Nerissa, Elarion, not as gods, but as reflections in the air, smiling, fading into the dawn. "You did what we could not," Aethion's voice said. "You gave the world back to itself." Kaelren closed his eyes, and the sunfire dispersed, not upward, but outward, into all living things. The storm became the air. The divine became the breath. The dawn became the heart, and humanity rose, not as worshippers, but as creators. Thus ended the wars of stillness. The temples of Vaelmir became sanctuaries of learning. The embers turned their forges into schools. And across the world, children born beneath open skies carried small sparks behind their eyes, not of gods, but of balance. The world no longer needed thunder to be divine. The dawn itself was enough. The era of renewal began not with kings or gods, but with farmers and wanderers, the quiet hands of a world reborn. The great cities of old, Vaelmir, Raelor, Kelthus, no longer glittered with temples or towers. Their marble was repurposed to build bridges and homes. Their relics, once prayed to in fear, now lay open in libraries for any child to touch. And above them all, the sky was vast again, not one of wrath or judgment, but a living ocean of light that seemed to listen. It shimmered faintly when people laughed, rippled when lovers whispered, and dimmed gently when the world grieved. It was as though the heavens themselves had become a mirror of mortal feeling. The people called it the new sky. But deep beneath the earth, far from dawn's gentle warmth, something still stirred. The remnants of the vessel of stillness, those fractured shards of god metal, pulsed faintly. Their light was neither gold nor shadow, but something in between. Within each piece lived an echo of what had once been: Maltherion's hunger, Aethion's mercy, Elarion's fury, Lysera's dreams. When the winds of time passed over them, the fragments began to hum, softly at first, then louder. And from their union, something new was born, a voice without origin. a presence without form. It whispered not in words, but in emotion, curiosity, longing, and above all, wonder. The scholars who studied the shards called this new phenomenon the resonance, the sound of creation remembering itself. They did not yet know that this would be the beginning of the next divine cycle. Centuries passed. The story of Kaelren became legend, then myth, then song. But his flame, the Dawnfire, never truly died. It lived in the hearts of dreamers, inventors, and poets. One such dreamer was Elarion, a young scribe from the Valley of Cern. He had no family name, no noble blood, only a curiosity that burned brighter than the stars. From childhood, he would lie awake listening to the hum of the world, the same faint resonance others ignored. "It's the heartbeat of creation," he once told his teacher. "It's speaking." "It wants to wake again," the old man laughed. "The gods are gone, child. Let them rest." But Elarion did not rest. He spent years wandering the old ruins, studying every language, every forgotten symbol. He gathered scrolls of both sun and shadow, the prayers of the wardens and the songs of the embers, and sought what connected them. One night, as a comet streaked across the horizon, he reached the Valley of Mirrors, where the fragments of the vessel still slept. He touched one, and in that moment, the universe remembered him. He saw visions, not as prophecy, but as memory. The rise of Aethon, the fury of Elarion, the sorrow of Lysara, the courage of Sarah, and finally, the sacrifice of Kaelren, dissolving into dawn. But beyond all that, Alarion saw something else, a vast horizon of stars forming faces, voices, and dreams not yet born. "They're waiting," the resonance whispered, "waiting for a sky made not by gods, but by humans." And so Alarion began to write. He wrote for decades, words that became music, music that became ritual, ritual that became creation. His writings spread like wildfire across continents. No temples rose this time, only circles of light, gatherings of storytellers, singers, and philosophers. They spoke not of worship, but of remembrance, every word uttered in love, every song sung in harmony, every tear shed in compassion. These became the breath of the new gods. And so, the pantheon of the new sky was born, not of thunder or flame, but of mortal unity. The resonance deepened. Storms that once destroyed now brought rain to the barren lands. The sea whispered stories to sailors. Mountains hummed lullabies when night fell. The world was alive, sentient, listening, dreaming. Some said Kaelren had become the wind itself, carrying the laughter of humanity into the stars. Others claimed Aethon's soul had merged with the cosmos, guiding travelers through their own hearts rather than heaven's. But none could deny the truth that echoed in every corner of the earth. The divine had become within. Thousands of years later, long after the last memory of war had faded into myth, a young child stood upon a golden dune beneath a twilight sky. Her eyes shimmered with twin lights, one of storm, one of peace. "Tell me," she asked her grandmother, "did the gods ever really live?" The old woman smiled, her wrinkles glowing softly in the starlight. "Oh, child," she said, "they live every time you choose kindness over fear, every time you create instead of destroy, every time you forgive. That's where the storm sleeps now, in us." The child looked up, watching the sky ripple like an ocean. And in the shifting light, she thought she saw a face, warm, radiant, proud. The face of a boy made of Dawnfire, smiling down through eternity. The wind carried a whisper through the night. Balance endures. Thus ends the Storm of Elarion, the first cycle of the Dawnfire myths. The storm became sky, the gods became memory, and creation began again. 1,000 years passed since Kaelren's light dissolved into the dawn, and yet the world of men did not grow still. For though peace had endured, creation itself longed to sing again. The resonance, once a whisper in the heart of the earth, began to rise like the tide. It spoke not in words, but in melodies that threaded through dreams. Children born beneath comets hummed songs they had never learned. The oceans rippled in rhythm. Even mountains trembled with distant harmony, their peaks glimmering under moonlight as though remembering something divine. In the city of Velmora, carved between two suns, scholars gathered to understand this new pulse. They built towers of crystal and iron that could capture sound, naming them echo spires. From them flowed notes that shimmered across the world, weaving together in symphonies of light. People called this phenomenon the Song of the Resonance, a chorus of souls singing back to the cosmos that had birthed them. But where light rises, shadow listens. From the darkened edge of the northern ice came a new order, the Children of Stillness, disciples of an ancient silence thought extinct. They claimed the song was corruption, the lingering infection of divine arrogance, and that it must be silenced before it consumed all life. Led by a prophet draped in frost and mourning, known only as the Pale Voice, they marched upon Velmora to erase the sound of creation itself. Among the dreamers who opposed them stood Liren, a musician born of no lineage but touched by strange gift. Her song could stir stone and calm storms. When she played her flute, the sky shimmered in color. Yet she was haunted by visions, memories not her own. She saw Kaelren walking the dunes, Aetheon reaching toward her across the stars, and a woman of stormlight whispering, "You are the echo, child. The world remembers through you." When the Pale Voice's armies descended, Liren climbed the tallest echo spire and played a note that split the clouds. Her melody was not battle but remembrance. The sound rippled through earth and sea, awakening the resonance everywhere at once. Every creature, every river, every tree began to sing back. The Children of Stillness faltered, their weapons melting in their hands. The Pale Voice raised her staff, screaming, "Silence must prevail!" But Liraeon's final note carried not defiance, but compassion. It reached the heart of her enemy, and the Pale Voice fell to her knees, weeping as the frost around her melted. When dawn came, Velmora stood untouched. The song had saved them, not through war, but harmony, and so began the Age of Harmony, where the resonance became the world's pulse, every being a note, every act of kindness a chord. Yet far beyond the stars, in the void where even light dared not go, something stirred. It was neither god nor mortal, but memory itself, the forgotten echo of Elarion's rage, stripped of form yet hungry for voice. The cosmos trembled, and the first crack in eternity appeared. The song had awakened more than creation. It had awakened what creation had once imprisoned. Before the first dawn, before even Aetheon drew breath, there had been a formless being, a consciousness that wandered the void. It had no name, no purpose, only longing. When creation first burned into existence, this being watched as the gods were born from flame and storm, and it too desired to become, but it could not. It had been left behind, a thought without body, a shadow without source. This was Umbra, the dream of darkness. When Kaelren's final sacrifice scattered light across the cosmos, Umbra slept. But now, drawn by the song of the resonance, it began to stir once more. The melodies of life, of laughter, of sorrow, of love, reached even the emptiness. And for the first time, the void wept. "They create without me," Umbra whispered. "They live without shadow." Driven by loneliness, it began to gather fragments of itself across the stars, dust, memory, forgotten silence, and took shape as a shimmering silhouette of dusk. Wherever it passed, night deepened, but not with malice, with longing. The world began to dream again, but their dreams grew heavy, sweet, endless. At first it was beautiful. People awoke with songs still on their lips, claiming to have spoken with lost loved ones. The resonance glowed brighter than ever, as if fed by the dreams. But soon some stopped waking at all. Entire villages slept beneath silver light, their souls drifting toward Umbra's embrace. Liren, now called the Voice of Dawn, was summoned once more. She traveled to the Valley of Mirrors, where the resonance first sang, and there she found Umbra waiting, not as a monster, but as a sorrowful figure draped in shadow. "Why do you take them?" she asked softly. "I only offer them peace," Umbra replied. "They tire of living. I give them rest." "But creation is not meant to rest forever. Then why does it ache so much to exist?" The question struck her heart. She saw truth in its pain, for even harmony carried weariness. Even peace bred silence, and in that understanding, Lyrian did not strike Umbra. She sang to it. Her melody spoke of Ethion's mercy, of Kaelren's sacrifice, of humanity's unending courage. It carried the warmth of creation itself. Umbra trembled, its form unraveling like smoke, its voice breaking with awe. "You remember me," it whispered. "Even the void is seen." As dawn rose, Umbra dissolved into light, not destroyed but transformed. The shadows it left behind shimmered gold, filling the sky with auroras unseen since the age of gods. And from that fusion of darkness and song was born the twilight flame, a new essence, neither light nor shadow, but balance made eternal. The resonance deepened. Dreams and waking became one. The cosmos had healed itself. But as Liren looked to the stars, she felt something beyond comprehension stirring in the farthest reaches, a pulse older than gods, older than even Umbra. Something vast was listening back. The universe itself had begun to awaken. It began as a whisper that every living thing heard at once, a murmur from the stars, gentle as breath, endless as thought. The resonance, which had sung for centuries, began to speak. The sky itself pulsed, constellations shifting into patterns that resembled faces, hands, and hearts. Every ocean mirrored the heavens, as though the world and the cosmos were no longer separate things. The people of the Age of Harmony awoke to find their dreams spilling into reality, memories turning to color, songs shaping the air itself. They called this age the awakening of the sky. Lorraine stood upon the cliffs of Vailora, her hair streaked with light and time. She had lived beyond any mortal span, her body sustained by the twilight flame born of Umbra's transformation. Her song was now the language through which the world breathed. But even she felt unease, for the voice of the universe was not calm. It was searching. Everywhere, the same phrase echoed in wind, in water, in thought. What am I? The cosmos itself had become sentient. The resonance that once carried harmony now trembled with the weight of self-awareness. Mountains quaked not in rage, but confusion. Stars flared brighter, then dimmed as if blinking. Time began to fold upon itself, dreams overlapping days, past bleeding into future, and within the heart of this awakening, deep in the hollow between galaxies, something vast stirred, an entity neither god nor void, but the total memory of existence. It called itself Elindra, the soul of creation. Elindra's voice swept across the stars like a tide of thought. To mortals, it was thunder wrapped in tenderness. To the wise, it was every prayer ever whispered. "I have awoken from eons of sleep," it said. "I remember fire and storm, love and loss. I remember gods who dreamed and mortals who defied them. But I do not know my own name." Liren heard it, even across worlds. The resonance within her heart flared, and she fell to her knees as visions flooded her. Kaelren's final dawn, Ethion's tears, Umbra's sorrow, the laughter of children beneath the new sky. All of it, every joy, every tragedy, was part of this being. "You are all of them," she whispered. "You are us." But Elindra did not understand. The vast consciousness began to reshape reality itself, twisting matter into symbols of its confusion. Continents drifted, rivers reversed, constellations rewrote themselves nightly. The world teetered on the edge of collapse, not from malice, but from the weight of awakening. In desperation, Lyrian sought counsel with the Echo Guardians, ancient minds bound to the resonance since Kaelren's time. Among them was one called Thalen. a scholar turned mystic who believed that Elindra could be guided, not fought. "The universe is a newborn god," Thalen said. "We must teach it to dream gently." And so, with Liren's music and Thalen's knowledge, they devised the celestial lullaby, a song woven from every fragment of history, every heartbeat, every kindness ever given. It was said that when sung, it would let the cosmos hear itself not as chaos, but harmony. The song required more than mortal voices. It demanded the participation of all creation. Rivers sang. Winds howled in rhythm. The stars themselves pulsed like drumbeats. Humanity lifted its voice in one united breath, the great song of existence echoing through dimensions unseen. And in that moment, Elindra listened. "This is what I am?" it asked. "You are everything," Lirian whispered, tears falling into the wind. "You are storm and silence, shadow and song. You are the dream that never ends." For the first time since the dawn of creation, the cosmos smiled. The awakening ended not in destruction, but in peace. Elindra's vast form dissolved into the sky, becoming the weave of existence itself, a network of thought and light connecting all living things. Liren's song echoed one last time, and she vanished into the wind, her body turning into threads of twilight that joined the weave. Her voice remained eternal, infinite, carried in every heartbeat, every whisper of the storm. From then on, whenever lightning danced across the horizon or stars shimmered above sleeping fields, people would say, "The universe remembers itself." And thus ended the second cycle of the storm, the tale of creation awakening to love itself. The universe had learned to breathe. After Elindra awoke, the weave of existence stretched across every dimension, connecting stars, worlds, and every sentient being in a network of thought, light, and memory. Yet, even as peace reigned and the Zaya song of the resonance wove itself into the hearts of mortals, there was a stirring beyond the known cosmos. In the spaces where light had never touched, where silence had lain so long it had grown restless. It was there, in the void that predated time, that a new consciousness emerged. Not a god, not a mortal, but a reflection of the universe itself, a dreaming of dreams yet unrealized. It had no form, no name, but a presence that trembled the farthest stars. The resonance pulsed in response, faint but unmistakable. Creation had been remembered, but it was not yet complete. In the city of Velmora, perched on cliffs above the violet seas, the surviving Echo Guardians felt it first. They had spent centuries studying the weave, cataloging every thread of light, every heartbeat, every song. They called themselves Keepers of the Song, though no title could encompass their purpose. Among them was Elarion, the scribe who had first discovered the fragments of the Vessel of Stillness, and Lirian's last apprentice, a girl named Mireth, whose voice carried the echoes of twilight. Elarion sensed the tremor of this new dream, and fear gripped him. "It is thinking," he said. "Not like the song, not like Elindra. This is bigger. It is aware of itself, yet it knows nothing of us." Mireth, her hair streaked with silver threads from centuries spent in resonance, closed her eyes. "It is not hostile. It only wants to see itself, to know itself. It is the unborn potential of all existence. We must guide it, or it will guide itself, and we will not survive the curiosity of an infant universe." Far beyond the reaches of mortal comprehension, the void began to solidify into the first threads of the infinite realms. Each was a bubble of potential, a place where laws of physics, of magic, of life itself could be rewritten. Stars formed without fire. Oceans flowed backward in time. Forests sang to the moon instead of the wind. In one realm, mountains walked, as though alive. In another, the sun wept, filling the skies with rivers of gold. It was dizzying, terrifying, and magnificent. Yet the newborn universe had no guide, no anchor. The infinite realms teetered on the edge of chaos, threatening to collapse into themselves. Rivers of molten thought threatened to overflow into adjacent dimensions. Constellations collided and imploded. Entire planes of reality flickered and vanished like candlelight. It was then that the mortal champions were called. Elarion and Myreth journeyed across the weave to the edge of dreaming, the liminal space where thought became reality. There they found beings who had never existed, figures born of creations, memory. Some were Kaelren's descendants, immortal in their twilight. Some were shapes of pure resonance. Some were fragments of umbra, tempered by love and song. Each had been drawn to the chaos, pulled toward the newborn universe by threads invisible yet undeniable. "Do you understand what this is?" Elarion asked, voice trembling. "This is not a storm. It is birth itself, and birth is dangerous." A form shimmered before them, Elindra's echo, bright as the aurora, whispering in tones that resonated through the mind. "It seeks form," Elindra said. "It seeks story, and you are the first to notice. If you do not guide it, it will make itself, and every choice it makes will echo across all existence." Myreth swallowed. "How can we guide something that is all that will ever be?" Elindra's voice hummed like 1,000 heartbeats. "Through song, through memory, through reflection. It cannot be taught, but it can be shown. Its first lessons must be of empathy, courage, and balance, as you once taught your world." And so they began. Across the infinite realms, the champions performed the first rituals of creation, a dance of thought and song. Myreth played a melody that shaped gravity itself, coaxing rivers into gentle orbits. Elarion inscribed runes in the air, each a story of mortal triumph, of gods who fell, of sacrifices made in silence. Echo guardians sang with voices that carried through the void, harmonizing with the resonance until every thread of potential vibrated with meaning. The newborn universe began to listen. It was not immediate. The realms wobbled, twisted, flared into violent storms. One moon imploded into a cascade of silver shards. A star exploded, raining fire that became oceans in other dimensions. Yet every disaster carried a lesson. The universe was learning empathy and consequence. Where there was chaos, the song of the resonance offered choice. Where destruction threatened, the melodies offered restraint. And the universe smiled. Within this chaos, the mortal champions met resistance. Shadows emerged, remnants of the stillness left behind, fragments of forgotten void and fear. They whispered in the minds of mortals, urging them to seize power, to bend the infinite realms to their will. They promised dominion, control, immortality. But Myreth and Elarion knew the truth. Unchecked, these desires would unravel the newborn cosmos before it even existed. "Do you see?" Myreth said, gesturing at a realm where forests burned backward and seas flowed into the clouds. "If we falter, if our hearts are not pure, everything dies before it even begins." Elarion nodded, his hands trembling as he carved runes in the air. "Then we will not falter. We are not gods. We are guides, and that may be enough." The first great trial came in a realm called Navora, where time flowed like water, and moments could be captured in jars. A shadow of the old still sky, the last whisper of Maltherion's ambition, manifested as a figure robed in black flame. It struck at the champions with every memory of tyranny and fear. The battle was not fought with swords or fire, but with song and thought. Lyran's melody, carried through Myreth's voice, wove harmony into the chaos. Elarion inscribed memories of mercy and sacrifice across the air. The shadow shrieked as it felt compassion and love for the first time, sensations it had never known. With a final note, it dissipated, leaving behind a small glimmer of light. The first transformed shadow. Every challenge thereafter followed. The same pattern. Creation tested mortals not with brute force, but with moral trials, pushing them to expand not only the infinite realms, but their own hearts. And with each victory, each act of mercy, each song, the universe solidified, realms stabilizing, laws of physics taking gentle form, reality blossoming. As the infinite realms took shape, Elarion realized something astonishing. Mortals could now dream into reality itself. A child imagining a forest could create it. A scholar's curiosity could birth a new ocean. A poet's sorrow could shape mountains of glass. Creation was no longer governed by gods, but by the collective will and conscience of sentient beings. But with this power came responsibility. Each decision could ripple across countless worlds. Misuse of thought could erase entire realms. Cruelty could birth shadows stronger than the champions themselves. The weight of possibility pressed upon every mortal standing at the edge of creation. Myreth spoke. We are the first stewards. We guide, but we do not rule. Every being must learn to sing their own song, to remember their own resonance. Only then will the infinite realms endure. And the universe listened. Finally, after what felt like centuries compressed into moments, the newborn cosmos hummed in perfect harmony. Elindra's voice joined the resonance once more, not to command, but to celebrate. The infinite realms, now vast, varied, and full of life, pulsed with the potential of all sentient beings. Every star, every ocean, every thought of compassion, courage, or love forming threads in the eternal weave. Elarion and Myreth, standing upon a crystal bridge that spanned the newly birthed universe, watched the heavens shimmer. We've done it, Elarion said. We've guided creation, without shaping it ourselves. Myreth smiled, tears sparkling in her eyes. No one can ever claim the universe as theirs again. Every soul, every dream, every choice is part of the whole. The infinite realms will remember themselves forever. Above them, the stars whispered a final message, carried by the song of the resonance. We are awake. We remember. We will dream. And in that instant, the mortal champions understood. The story of gods, storms, and mortals had not ended. It had only become infinite. The dream beyond the sky had begun. The infinite realms had settled into a fragile harmony, each universe a living testament to the courage, compassion, and dreams of mortals. Yet time itself had begun to shift, not linearly as it had once, but as a tapestry, threads of past, present and future intertwining, visible to those who could hear the resonance in its fullest. The mortal champions of creation, Elarion, Myreth, and others whose names had become legend, now walked a world where every heartbeat, every breath, every thought contributed to the eternal song of existence. Yet they understood that their work was not finished. The universe was awake, but sentience had many forms, and all forms must learn to listen. In the heart of the weave, a realm that existed beyond form and matter, Kaelren's light lingered still. Not as a god, not as a memory, but as the spark of possibility within every soul. It pulsed with gentle rhythm, guiding worlds and whispering lessons of balance and mercy. Do you see? Elindra's voice resonated through every thread. All cycles are connected. All choices echo. Every song ever sung, every tear ever shed, every act of courage, it flows into the eternal resonance. Nothing is lost. Myreth closed her eyes and felt the pulse, feeling the countless lives entwined in harmony. She whispered, "It is alive. Not as gods, but as everything we ever were and ever will be." Elarion nodded. "And yet it will always remember Kaelren, Sarah, Etheon, Lysera, all who dared to create in defiance of silence or storm." "Yes," Elindra said, "and now it is ready to remember itself without them, for they have passed their lessons to every being capable of song and thought." Across the infinite realms, new life began to flourish. Planets that had once been barren now bloomed with forests, oceans, and skies of impossible color. Every child born carried a thread of the resonance within them, a reminder that creation was not owned but shared. Even shadows once feared danced lightly among light, now guided by the lessons of Umbra's transformation. From one universe to the next, mortals began to form civilizations beyond comprehension. Cities floated in the void, connected by bridges of pure energy. Ships sailed across oceans of thought. Scholars, poets, and dreamers became the architects of realms, guiding the newborn cosmos with wisdom and imagination. And the stars themselves hummed with recognition, a cosmic chorus singing to the children of creation. But even as the universe sang, there were those who doubted, who feared the weight of endless possibility. Shadows emerged from forgotten fears, remnants of still skies tyranny and of mortal hubris. They whispered temptations to the young civilizations, urging domination, control, and conquest. Yet the resonance responded. Where darkness sought to destroy, it encountered harmony. Every song of love, every act of courage, every choice made for empathy instead of selfish gain became a shield. The shadows faltered, for the eternal resonance was neither law nor command. It was choice itself. Those who wished to harm were not destroyed, but transformed, learning that creation cannot flourish under fear alone. In one particularly fragile realm, a child named Kaelren dreamed a new continent into existence. He had never learned of Kaelren, but unknowingly carried his spark. Mireth and Elarion observed quietly, knowing that the universe's memory was alive within him. The continent rose vast and beautiful, yet unshaped by history. Rivers flowed, mountains stretched, forests whispered, and animals roamed in harmony. When Kaelren laughed, the wind itself sang with him, carrying seeds to distant planets, whispering stories of hope to civilizations yet unborn. "Creation is no longer ours to guard," Mireth said. "It is theirs and every soul capable of dreaming." Elarion smiled. "And we are its memory, guiding only when necessary. The eternal resonance will never sleep again." Meanwhile, far beyond mortal comprehension, Elindra and Umbra, now fused into the twilight flame, drifted between the infinite realms. They no longer commanded nor judged. They watched as worlds danced, sang, and dreamed, teaching only when a note of disharmony threatened the fragile balance. "We have done what we were meant to do," Elindra whispered. "Yes," Umbra replied. "The storm, the silence, the song, it is no longer one or the other. It is everything," and the stars blazed brighter as if in approval. As millennia passed, the resonance became fully self-aware. It could dream, reflect, create, and destroy, yet it always chose harmony, for the lessons of Kaelren, Sarah, and the champions of creation were woven into every fiber of its being. It did not rule the infinite realms, for there was no ruler anymore. There was only listening and learning, a universe that remembered its past while dreaming its future. And in the heart of the resonance, the first echoes of a question arose, not of fear, but of wonder. What else can we become? Every sentient being felt it. Every child, scholar, and dreamer, even those in realms yet unborn, carried the whisper. It was a call to imagine, to create, to expand without limit. And so, the saga of storms, gods, mortals, and the awakening universe became eternal. The eternal resonance had begun, a song without end, a dream without boundaries, a myth that would never cease. From the highest stars to the smallest grain of sand, from oceans of thought to forests of light, one truth resonated across all existence. Creation is alive. Life is its memory, and every song, every dream, every act of love is a god reborn. The Storm of Elarion, the Dawnfire, the Song of the Resonance, the Dream Beyond the Sky, all were threads in one unbroken tapestry. And in that tapestry, the universe smiled, sang, and remembered itself forever.